today to have our cup of tea event, and we'll start off with some announcements. So just our ongoing announcement to everyone to please consider joining the retinoblastoma research community. It was created to connect those who have some sort of connection to retinoblastoma, be it personally or professionally. And it's a great way for us to all stay in touch and communicate. So you can join it by following the link on the screen now. I think someone's going to paste it into the chat, and there's also our various social media platforms as well. So we really encourage everyone to join, including health professionals, researchers, students, everybody, so we can stay in touch and share information with one another. I also wanted to let you know about some opportunities to partner in research, including becoming a cup of tea partner. We're always looking for anyone from those with lived experience or those with professional experience to volunteer to be a partner in one of these ongoing cups of tea. So please do let us know if you're interested. And you can also join one of our patient partnerships and research projects that we worked on during the symposium. And you can find out more about those on our blog. And we also have, there's a patient advocate committee which exists to support the Rare Pediatric Eye Cancer Biobank. Lots more information about all of these opportunities in our newsletter, or you can email us. And I think, again, there's some links about that put in the chat. But always happy to answer questions and encourage people to just give things a shot and see if you like it. And there's another great study that's happening, which is being run out of SickKids. And this is an opportunity to be a participant in this study. So this group at SickKids is trying to create a questionnaire called the FACE-Q ophthalmology questionnaire. And anyone who's over the age of 8 that has been treated for retinoblastoma is invited to reach out to find out more about participating in the study. And again, there's a link in the chat about that. And there's this QR code on your screen and the eligibility criteria on the right-hand side there. But we need, for the study, quite a large number of individuals that have experience with retinoblastoma treatment. So please do consider taking a few minutes to do this. It's really not that much time, and it would make a really big difference in developing this questionnaire. And
hi, Lynn.
Oh, you're here. Thank goodness. I'll stop now.
I'm terribly sorry. Of course, when this beautiful event is happening, Stouffville is having a power outage across town. So even my neighbors cannot help me. But I'm joining through my mobile. And Caitlin, thank you for flipping the slides for me. And thank you all for putting
Oh, we're losing you a bit, even. Oh, darn. Even I think you're trying so hard to be connected, and we appreciate that, but it was just cutting out there. It looks like you're back. Do you want to try again? Okay, I'm going to fumble along in your absence. It's cutting out a little bit. I'm sorry, Ivana. I'll keep going, but if your connectivity improves, jump on in, because you're certainly the expert in running these events. So I'll keep trying, but if your connectivity improves, jump right back in. The next announcement was just to let everybody know that a lot of great work from the people involved in the 2024 symposium has happened since the symposium itself ended, and you can look at our recent newsletter and blog posts to see some really great summaries of all the work that happened at the symposium. And our YouTube channel now has recordings from the various meetings that happened as part of the symposium. So we encourage you to take a look at those. I know some of us were only in one workshop, and I know myself included, I'm very keen to see what happened in the other workshops. So, if you ever have a free minute, you might consider watching part of those recordings just to get caught up and see if anything interests you that you weren't able to be part of during that weekend event. And just reach out if you have any questions whatsoever, or interested to know more, or need clarifications in any way. We're really happy to keep the conversation going. And oh boy, this is really Ivana's work, but I'll do my best. But if you're there, Ivana, jump on in. Ivana is our amazing parent in research, and these are her updates. And so I think these are different things that are coming up that we want you to know about. So the next cup of tea event will be in September. We'll be talking about the impact of retinoblastoma on daily living. There'll be a December cup of tea talking about coping after nucleation, a March cup of tea talking about depict health. And then we've just earmarked a probable date for the 2025 RB Research Symposium, which is April 5th and 6th, 2025. So please do save the date for that now and get that marked off in your calendars. And we're really looking forward to doing that and hoping it can be another, probably a hybrid sites again, as that was a big success. So yeah, do save the date for that. And then also in the fall is the One Retinoblastoma World meeting in Hawaii, October 15th to 17th. And it's a really great meeting for everyone to attend. For those with lived experience are encouraged to join physically or virtually. It's a great meeting that's meant to be accessible for all, and we hope people will consider attending that for sure. And there's also the OPAC parent drop-ins, which happened at SickKids in the Sears Cancer Clinic Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and the time is there on the screen. Even though you're back, did I miss anything?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it sounds good now.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. I just wanted to mention all this information is also in the newsletter. So those who have signed up to the RB Research community received the newsletter this past weekend and can catch up on all this information there. The next slide, I just wanted to share that I had shared some news during the symposium. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, that sounds great. You're clear.
Okay. I shared some news at the symposium that I will be pursuing some new adventures, and that will be my husband starting a new business. So we're doing this together. So I'll be moving on from my parent and research role that I have been doing in the Damaris Lab. And I want to make sure I thank all of you who have partnered on projects, attended events, and engaged with me through CRAB initiatives. I have immensely enjoyed getting to know everyone, but this is just to say that it's not the end of me. I just want to continue participating in other in CRAB projects such as the FaceQ, such as the Biobank, and any upcoming workshops and events. Of course, I will be in attendance and engage with all of you again. So it's not a goodbye, it's just small change.
Thanks for that, Eva.
Next slide. So for today's cup of tea, we're going to be discussing applications of three-dimensional printing in ophthalmology. The plain language summary of this article is available on our website with the link shared in our chat. And the guest speakers that we have for tonight are Mark Scanlon, who is a retinoblastoma survivor, and as a new member of the Canadian Retinoblastoma Research Advisory Board. Mark was interested in learning more about advancements of 3D printing in ophthalmology, specifically with ocular prosthetics. Noha Soliman is a PhD student in the SIGU lab at Moorfields Eye Hospital in London, UK. Noha is currently working on a clinical trial which creates 3D printed eyes using non-invasive, fully digital methods with the aim to significantly speed up production and provide patients with a quicker and less invasive experience. And we will have Jane Walter with us today as well, who is a postdoctoral research fellow at SickKids in the Mallipatna Lab. Jane has been working on the research to develop 3D printed eyes for educational.
Oh dear. I'm not hearing Eva, but maybe it's just my internet. She's breaking up for others. I'm so sorry, Eva. I appreciate you trying so hard. I'm going to proceed with the slides.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, it's a recording, so I'll go back and start again. Okay. Oh dear. Here we go.
Hi.
Oh dear. Sorry, I don't know how this is set up. Hold on, there we go. Maybe.
Hi, yeah, my name is Mark Scanlon. I am 45, living in Ottawa, Ontario. I'm a survivor of retinoblastoma. from when I was 1 year old. I guess first and foremost, I would like to thank Ivana and the retinoblastoma research community for putting on this cup of tea event today. I apologize for not being able to join you in person. I really would have liked to, but with my travel and the time change, it really didn't quite work out. So I'm doing the next best thing and joining you with a pre-recorded presentation here today. But as I mentioned, I'm a retinoblastoma survivor. It recurred, I had bilateral retinoblastoma when I was 1. It recurred in my right eye when I was 5, and I had it enucleated. And so I grew up, navigating life with a prosthesis. I had my implant fitted right after I had my right eye taken out, and I had a mold taken and a prosthesis made shortly after that. And so, I'm quite familiar with the topic of prosthesis, and I'm really excited about what we're talking about here today, and that's 3D printing of prosthetic eyes. I think that there's great opportunity for advancement in this area, and a lot that can be given both to patients going through their own RB stories, and through medical research and education. Unfortunately, when I was in my early 30s, I had an infection in the implant in my socket, and so I had my implant taken out and lost the ability to wear a prosthesis, and have been living in an eye patch ever since. And so this is really exciting, kind of for me to get in and then learn about what new technologies there are, and I'm interested in perhaps wearing a prosthesis again. I'll give a little bit of background on the idea of three-dimensional printing and the technology, and how it's really revolutionized various fields of medicine, which includes the ophthalmology field, by providing innovative solutions to complex clinical challenges. There are really kind of two sides to this coin. One is on the surgical side, where 3D printing is provided great capabilities in the fields of customized surgical instruments, as well as implants that are being implanted during surgery. But then on the flip side of that, there's the planning and the education side, where 3D printing is really provided great opportunities, for looking for printing out, whichever area that the surgeons are going to go in to do the surgery, and to have a solid plan to go in and perform that, as well as to educate future and current medical professionals in the areas that we're able to get now a much more up close and precise look at the real thing. By exploring the advancements and then challenges of the integration of 3D printing into the ophthalmological practice, the study that we're talking about today aims to inform doctors, researchers, and medical service developers into the potential benefits of 3D print of the new technology into the field of eye prosthetics. Our goal here is to encourage future research and the development in this area. More on what we're talking about today. We focus on really two areas. There's the ocular prosthetics, which is the new technology, and while I say this is a new technology, there are of course challenges. There are high costs associated with any sort of new technology, but the end goal is to make this an accessible and cost-effective solution for patients who are looking for solutions in the prosthetic area. And as well, the surgery, like I mentioned earlier, the potential that it holds for surgical planning in the area, especially of retinoblastoma, where the tumors on the retina are so small. The ability to print a real time a sample of what they're looking to what they need to go in and plan to eradicate is going to be very beneficial to the field. I think one of the best ways to demonstrate, what this technology holds is through visuals. So we have here a visual on the left of a 3D printed mold, and then on the right we have a 3D printed prosthesis. So I just want to highlight here the realistic look of the prosthetic when it's in place, in the orbital socket. Here are some photographs of the real thing, 3D printed prosthesis. And here's a photo of 3D printed prosthetic implant, with the eyelid mount. Of course, with any new and developing technology, there are some challenges. So I'll just quickly highlight a few of them that are discussed in the article. There are regulatory hurdles. There really is no structure in place that goes through the approval process for these 3D printed medical devices. And so without that firmly in place, so there are going to be challenges getting these sorts of newer technologies approved. There's there are challenges in the precision and reproducibility of each implant as the technology is growing. There are from case to case, it's not exactly the same. But it's going to be a challenge with any new technology. As I mentioned earlier, there's the cost and accessibility. There are very high front end costs associated with the development of 3D printing, and they're not accessible, everywhere right now. But it's a challenge that's going to be faced with any new technology. I would be remiss not to mention certain ethical challenges. We need to highlight that there are, certain sensitivities with and religious concerns with 3D printing, as well as I don't think black market is quite the right term, but the use of unlicensed software in the field does produce an ethical challenge that we need to be aware of, as well, of course, of any legal challenges. Again, we don't have enough. I'm not aware of any current legal challenges that there are out there, or any cases in the courts. But until we establish what that framework is going to be, we simply need to be aware that there is the potential for some legal challenges. But what does the future bring for us? And it really is quite exciting. In terms of the material development, there's quite a bit of research that is being done right now into biocompatible materials that look, almost indistinguishable from what we'll call the real thing. They're very realistic materials that make them almost indistinguishable from, an actual eye. Also in the field of material development, we have more resilient, durable, long-lasting materials that are going to be used in the area, and that just means that the end product for the user the implant is that they're going to have something that's going to be good for a long time. There's also improvements in the printing capabilities. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the challenges that we have is the issue in precision and reproducibility, as well as my challenge in saying the word reproducibility. But that's being addressed now, and then we're seeing advancements in those areas as the technology advances. There's quite a lot of advancement in the area of personalized medicine, pairing 3D technology with current scanning technologies such as MRI and CT scans. Is going to mean that in the future there's going to be a much more personalized approach to medicine, and for each case there's going to be a very specific plan in place and developed that will meet the needs of each individual patient, and then that's quite exciting. I mentioned earlier a bit of the challenges around the regulations, legal and ethical challenges. We're working to develop some of those regulatory frameworks that will allow for those sorts of hurdles and barriers to not be issues for the patient. And then when it comes to education and training tools, there's a lot of research and a lot of work being done to bring this new technology to the medical field so that it is available and accessible. So that brings us to our discussion here today. And what does all this mean for patients, for medical professionals, researchers? And one of the areas that I think this really has the most potential is for those who have undergone their treatment, embarking upon their post-retinoblastoma journey. And really, given that retinoblastoma is a childhood disease and it affects children, and then after that, going on into preteen and then teenage years, my thinking is always, well, those are difficult years, to undergo for that's a quote unquote normal child. What about somebody having gone through retinoblastoma and having an eye enucleated? And so I think that there's great potential here for bringing a sense of normalcy to survivors after they've gone through the whole ordeal, which is a terrible ordeal in and of itself to go through. But then what does life mean after that? And I think that that's really one of the greatest potentials that we have here, is helping to bring a life of normalcy to these patients. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Noha. I had a great time chatting with Noha and getting to know her through our planning meetings and discussions, and then putting together this presentation, and to be able to talk with you all here today. And so with that, I'll turn things over to Noha. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mark. So my name is Noha Soliman, and I work under the supervision of Professor Mandeep Sugu at Moorfields Eye Hospital, London. Our team for some time now has been working on utilizing the 3D techniques and producing 3D artificial eyes. At Moorfields, end of last year, we've actually finished a clinical trial to test the 3D printed artificial eyes, but we haven't published the data yet. While working on the clinical trial, we've also supplied 50 patients at Moorfields Eye Hospital with these 3D printed artificial eyes, and I'm here to present the outcomes. Just before I start, I'd like to mention that I have no financial or conflict of interest to disclose. So the process of making a handmade artificial eyes has been relatively the same over 50 years. It involves using impression molding of the eye socket, which can be a bit invasive, and it depends solely on the artisan skills of the ocularist. And ocularist is someone who hand paint the artificial eyes, trying their best to mimic the fellow eye, which can be a bit time consuming. So the aim of my talk today is to report our new technique that involves using non-invasive, fully digital, end-to-end, no-touch process to produce a fully digital 3D printed artificial eyes. For that, we've recruited 50 patients. 49 patients received a 3D full thickness artificial eyes, and 1 patient received a 3D cosmetic shell. So how did we manage to manufacture a 3D printed artificial eyes? Now, what we've done is that we've utilized that machine, which is what we call anterior segment OCT machine. Originally, that machine would give us like black, white, or gray images. But what we've done is that we fitted that machine with a color calibrated camera, and that's how we managed to get color images of the eye. What we've done is that using again the same machine, we have managed to scan the eye socket, and then again using the same machine, we take a color image of the fellow eye. It's a process that takes roughly 5-10 minutes, and then we would send all that information to a specific software, and that software would translate all of these images, all of this information to a 3D printable file, and we would send all of that information to a 3D printer, where we would get a 3D printed artificial eyes. Now, the whole process shouldn't take more than 2 hours, but unfortunately we don't have that 3D printer at Moorfields. That's why it takes us like around a week or 2 to get the 3D printed artificial eye. After we supplied all the 3D artificial eyes to the patient, we would assess the following outcomes: the fit, how well the eye socket stays in the eye; function, and by function we mean motility, the movement of the eye socket in different gaze direction, up, down, right, and left; and then the aesthetic appearance. And we would examine the eye socket in case of there is any complication or adverse events. So this is one of our lovely patients who received a 3D artificial eyes, and she is wearing it in her. So I will give you a few seconds to think. So she's wearing it in her left eye, and she was really happy with the details of the 3D artificial eye. So let's have a quite close look. So if you look at the eye structure, so the black dot in the eye is what we call the pupil, is almost the same. The iris, which is the color circle around the pupil, we try to, as much as we can, to make it look similar to the fellow eye, but the patient herself was happy with it. The white of the eye, what we call the sclera, is almost identical, and even the blood vessels, they are almost identical as well. So now, just to present the results, 50 patients were fitted for 3D printed ocular prosthesis from October 2022 to July 2023. The anterior segment OCT machine has managed to successfully scan the eye sockets in 49 patients. 1 patient was supplied with a 3D cosmetic shell, and for patients wearing cosmetic shells, they still have their eyes, but it's a bit small, and for these patients we do not scan the eye socket. So 47 3D printed artificial eyes were manufactured. 3 patients couldn't receive a 3D printed artificial eyes, reason being 2 patients had arcus sinalis, 1 patient had nystagmus in the fellow eye, and that prevented us from getting a 3D printable file, hence we couldn't 3D print the artificial eyes for them. 7 patients were unsatisfied with the cosmesis or the fit of the artificial eyes. 3 patients are yet to be supplied till today. 1 patient has decided to go back to their handmade artificial eye. Overall, up to 72%, which is 36 patients, were satisfied with the overall function, fit, and aesthetic appearance of the 3D artificial eyes. There were no serious adverse events or any complication on the eye socket for any of the patients. So just to conclude, I did present a fully digital end-to-end, no-touch, non-invasive technique in producing and manufacturing 3D printed artificial eye that hopefully mimics the fellow eye in terms of color match and eye structure overall. No serious adverse events, complication, or side effects were reported, and most of our patients reported acceptable artificial eye movement and aesthetic appearance. And these are the full details of our trial if you are interested to read more. Thank you so much for listening, and if you have any questions, please do send an email and I will respond to it. Thank you so much.
Hi, Caitlin. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, so now we've heard from Mark and from Noha. We also have a presentation from Jane. And Jane, if you're ready, you could start with your presentation. And Caitlin, if you could please change the slides.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to be presenting about the 3D model eyes that we've made for training purposes. So you can go to the next slide. So our model eyes are developed for training pediatricians and family doctors who don't get a ton of ophthalmology training in their regular medical degree. And they especially don't get much training with identifying abnormal eye reactions. So we wanted to teach them, we wanted to offer a good method for having them practice identifying abnormal eye reflections like leukocoria from retinoblastoma in different situations. And we also wanted to make sure that we mimicked the appearance for different skin tones and eye colors, different pigment variations that occur in the population, because that's another thing that they may not necessarily get a ton of exposure to during training, is all the different ways a normal reflex can appear, and ways that you can see something that looks unusual, like a pseudoleukocoria, in a healthy eye. So we wanted to provide models that could help them observe all of these things. So you go to the next slide. So to build our model eyes, we actually used real patient images, and we got the shapes and measurements of the different eye structures by defining each different area. So we've got like cornea in yellow there, and the lens in a different shade of yellow, and then a tumor at the back in a brown color. And so we marked off all these structures and saved all the different structures as a mesh file. So you can see there's a mesh of a lens that we measured. And then we do some fitting to make sure we measure all the different surfaces and dimensions of the structures. And then we can create a 3D printable file. And so we printed with, I believe, the same printer that they used for their prostheses, a Stratasys J750 digital anatomy printer, which can get very fine detail. And we wanted to make our models as realistic as possible in terms of how they interact with light. So we made it fluid-filled like a real eye. So you can see on the far right there an example of a model eye that we made with a cornea and a lens, and it is water-filled. There's an iris there. And this one also has two tumors. They're stylized tumors based off of ones that we observed in patients, but we wanted two different positions, two different kinds of tumor, so that doctors could practice, looking at different angles to see them. All right, we can go to the next slide. So the other challenge that we wanted to do was we wanted to match the color of the reflection, the reflex from the back of the eye. And so initially we thought, okay, we'll just print a picture of the back of the eye inside the model. But the pigments that you use to print are not as strong. They don't absorb light as much, and they don't scatter the light as much as the actual pigments in the eye, like melanin or the hemoglobin in blood. So printing the reflex, printing the picture on the back of the eye gave a very sort of pale reflection that didn't get the vivid color. So what we ended up doing was matching the reflex colors by making a layered model that's similar to the layers in the back of the eye. So in the back of the eye, you've got the retina, and then there's a pigment layer in the retina. It's just all melanin. It's really dark, but it's also really thin. And then behind that, you have the choroid, which is filled with blood vessels, but also has melanin in it. And the amount of melanin varies a lot from person to person in the choroid. So we made a layered model that has a different thickness of black on it to show the different amounts of melanin that you see in different people, and then a lot of red to mimic the blood vessels. We can go to the next slide. So before we started, we also looked at other eye models that were available and to see if any of them could do the same thing for the reflex from the back of the eye. But none of them, there was nothing out there that met all of the needs that we wanted to fill. So none of them had a reflex that really came from the back of the eye and could be seen from different viewing angles and showed healthy eyes of different pigmentation and also eyes with different diseases that would affect the reflex with different pigmentation. So there are a few out there, but not doing everything that we wanted to do. So if you can go to the next slide. So the current models that we have different colors of fundus and different colors of iris. And we have healthy eyes and eyes that mimic a few different diseases. So we have eyes mimicking retinoblastoma, but also cataracts and myopia and corneal opacities. And as you can see, the bottom row there shows 4 different colors of fundus reflection for different amounts of pigmentation. And then the middle one shows a white reflex in one eye and a normal reflex in the other. So we've been able to get a good variety of reflections, and we've started evaluations where we've had ophthalmologists who haven't worked on this project evaluate our models and give us feedback. And we're also looking at developing a curriculum for training medical students that will incorporate these models. And we're also working on adding detail and getting a more accurate lens and cornea in our models. Because right now we're only mimicking the overall optics of the eye, but we actually, our lens is not the same shape as a lens that you would find in a small child. So we need to work on a way to get a more accurate model of the lens. Right, and we could go. Oh, yeah, that's the end. That was all that I wanted to present from ours, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Jane. It was very informative to hear about what you guys are working on to help with education for retinoblastoma diagnosis, which is the top priority for the top 10 retinoblastoma research priorities. We also learned about prosthetic eyes and 3D printing for how 3D printing can print prosthetic eyes. And I wanted to now open it up to everyone here. If you have any questions, we do have also an ocularist in our audience who can help answer questions about 3D printing, and others who have specialties in retinoblastoma and ophthalmology. Perhaps I can get started. I'm wondering if any of the professionals here who are working in ophthalmology, aside from 3D printing and prosthetic eyes and the eyes Jane just shared with us for educational purposes, do you see any other areas in ophthalmology for retinoblastoma that 3D printing could be used for? And I was perhaps wondering, is there an opportunity for something like unique instruments that perhaps are needed for retinoblastoma or anything else?
I don't know if Ashwin was going to share. Do you want to talk a little bit about your nucleation model, Ashwin, or is that too early days?
No, I think I'm happy to contribute in any way possible to the conversation, of course. I think we're very excited about the types of 3D printing technology that's available nowadays. And I think in ophthalmology, there is a large interest in the kinds of 3D printing that can actually generate tissue. So I know that it's probably in its very infancy, but perhaps regenerating some tissue or trying to mimic the layers of tissue is something that people are hoping to get in some way. And I think that will be quite likely the holy grail for 3D printing or bio 3D printing in some way. But I would say that we're quite far away from that right now, from what I can tell, and that's certainly not what we are focusing on here. In terms of surgical equipment and other things that are done, I think it's just natural that with the kinds of prototyping that are available now, most people go to 3D printing first. And we do have a lab in SickKids that works on surgical robotics as well. And we haven't yet had the opportunity to go with an ophthalmology idea to them. But it's certainly come up with many conversations with the lab. So those are a few avenues. And in terms of training model, yes, as Caitlin said, some of our surgical procedures that are unique or have unique requirements. I think tailoring that for the purposes or making it, let's say, easier to allow for surgical planning or surgical training, that occurs with plastic surgeons quite naturally. It occurs with orthopedic surgeons as well. So I think ophthalmology is not going to be too far behind, and that's certainly something else that we can use 3D printing for. I must say that there are different processes of 3D printing. What's been described so far, or at least in these projects so far, are the ones that print layer by layer. But there are other 3D printers that print with light in a way, and they get much smoother models. and our group in SickKids that is working with intraarterial chemotherapy for retinoblastoma. They're working on 3D models of the blood vessels in the brain. So you can, so people can learn to thread the catheter into the artery that supplies the eyeball and delivers chemotherapy. So that's being worked on right now, and there are a few of those projects that are quite exciting and quite nice to know that they're all coming up at the same time. But I think technology has reached a point where we can finally get to that direction, and I'm actually quite excited about that.
That is really exciting. I didn't know that there was so much happening in this field. And does anybody have any questions about what you've heard about today? Okay, I have another question. Andra, our ocularist in the audience here, I was wondering if you could maybe share some feedback about the differences between 3D printed eyes and traditionally created eyes as an ocularist.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for asking, Ivana. Yeah, so I only make eyes right now in the traditional process, but I have been to Moorfields a couple of times to observe the clinical trial that Noha was talking about tonight. And I would say the biggest difference is that there's less burden on both the patient and the manufacturer in terms of time. So I think that most people would be attracted to this, like from the patient perspective, because it requires fewer visits to the ocularist. Not that you don't love to come and see us, but a lot of people are coming from out of town. So it'd be nice to just come in, get your scans done, then come back and have your eye ready. As Noha mentioned, it's less invasive than the current methods. So anyone who finds the impression process unpleasant might prefer a light scan of their socket. You still have to wear a conformer while you have the scan done, but for anyone who just really doesn't like that sensation or has sensitivity to it of the alginate or the polyvinyl siloxane, the squishy material, that would be no longer something you'd have to worry about. In terms of the results, it's so hard to say because every prosthesis is unique to the person, right? And everyone has a different challenge in terms of how their lids are healing and all of that stuff. So I've seen a lot of results that look really good, especially for some reason with the blue eyes. I think that the way the eye is photographed, it picks up on high contrast irises really well. So those are really brilliant. I know they were struggling a bit with the darker eyes at first, but I think they've made some improvements in that area. So I'd say initially, the main thing is for the patient, if you were to have this 3D printed technology right now, it would be the reduced burden of time would be the advantage. But I think in the long run, there's more potential to improve the product because with digital technology, there's more that we can do at that microscopic level to improve the look. So I think over time, it will open up a lot of just potential to, let's say, work on dilating pupils, which we haven't really been able to do except for as an optical illusion, or find new ways of coating the prosthesis so that it's maybe a little bit more hydrophilic. So I'm really excited about this technology. I hope to maybe bring it into a clinical trial in Canada over the next year if I can get that together. So I think it shows a lot of promise, and I'm I'm happy to answer any questions from anyone here who is interested in learning more about it.
I have a question, Andra, or anyone else. The clinical trial done in Moorfields, I think was, if I'm not mistaken, mainly adults. Do you foresee any difference in having more children participate in something like this, or is it expected to work just as well and just as few scans and things like that?
Yeah, it's expected to work well with anyone who can sit still for 2.4 seconds and keep their eyes still for that long. So there's no reason why children over the age of, I don't know what that would be, depending on the kid. I know that there were certain parameters for them to do the initial trial that were based on like body weight. That would have been fine to have kids, smaller children involved. But I think just it's a lot more complicated in terms of getting permission and everything like that with minors. So they just did it over 18. But in terms of anyone who can sit up straight and look at a camera for 2.5 seconds, I believe that there's potential for that to happen. Of course, we would want to do that in a responsible way and do the clinical trials, but there's no, on the face of it, there's no reason why it wouldn't be appropriate for younger people.
Thanks, Sandra. That's exciting. I for one, am excited at your leadership and wanting to bring this trial to Canada. So I hope others in the CRAB group will be interested in supporting you as well.
Yeah, I also wanted to find out from Andra, who's actually noticed the procedure, whether she, what's the turnover time for something like this? Is it 24 hours or more or less, or how does that work?
Yeah, so as Noha said, in theory, it could be done in 24 hours, but right now they have, because this is a medical device and they need the facility to be ISO 13485 and whatever, they just have one printing facility right now in Germany. So it's a 3-week turnaround currently. So the idea would be eventually to have more printing facilities. But I think the company that is working on this is just very cautious about not putting anything out into the market that they're not confident as it has been produced to their standards. So they just have that one printing facility right now.
Okay, so all the irises get printed in Germany, and they need to be flown to wherever they're going to be used eventually, I guess.
Yeah, right now that's how it is.
Okay, that sounds good, and perhaps that's all we need, because it doesn't take longer than 24 hours to ship anything outside anyway. So perhaps that's all we need.
Certainly. I just wanted to point out Marg's question in the chat. She said, if and when you get a clinical trial going for 3D printed eyes in the GTA, how would RB patients find out about it, particularly those who are no longer seen at SickKids? I think we'd like to, if we've designed it well and, eligibility is across Canada, we can certainly let anyone know. I think the best way is if you're signed up to the retinoblastoma research community, because that's anyone with lived experience of retinoblastoma or professional experience. And that's, I think, the easiest way to get beyond just who's a patient at each hospital. It's anyone who's ever had a connection to retinoblastoma. If we can build up that database, then we can let everyone know and about all the opportunities, and then you can select the one that makes sense for you. So I've put the link in the chat for anyone else who's interested.
Thank you for those questions. I think I saw Caitlin had posted a question as well. We have just less than a minute left.
I was just curious, I probably missed this, but was the trial had a high satisfaction rate amongst the participants of 75% or something, but was that satisfaction compared to, like, was that suggesting that they preferred the printed eye, or just that they liked it as much as the conventional eye rather? Like, was it, you know what I mean, what was it? Does anyone know what the outcome itself was? Was it just global satisfaction, or satisfaction, like a preference for the 3D eye as compared to the conventionally made eye?
I think there was one out of the 47 that were eligible, only one of them ended up going back to their original prosthesis instead of staying with the 3D printed eye.
But that might mean they like them equally or more. Like, you know what I mean? I was just curious if that's indicative of them liking it more, or just that they like it as much as, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, I guess. I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think anecdotally, it wasn't part of the official trial, but at the end they got to choose, because they were blinded. They didn't know which eye they were wearing for the different periods. And at the end it was revealed, and then most of them, like I think it was higher, or like at least equal to the 73, chose to wear the digital eye. So I think most of them preferred it.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah,
that's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, everyone, so much. We've reached 9 o'clock here. So I know another meeting is starting for some of the attendees. Thank you, Caitlin, for stepping in and for helping me. And I'm so sorry for any disruptions this caused tonight, but I appreciate you sticking by. So have a wonderful evening, and the recordings will be ready soon.
Great. Thanks so much, Ivana.
Bye-bye, everyone.